There is a moment in every painter's life, whether they are standing in a sunlit studio in New York, a quiet apartment in Chicago, or a small rented room somewhere no one will ever visit, when something changes. It is not dramatic. There is no thunder, no applause, no sudden revelation that arrives with fireworks. It is quieter than that. It happens when the brush stops feeling like an object you are holding and starts feeling like an extension of something inside you. That moment has a name. We call it flow. The silence before flow. Before flow arrives, there is always resistance. Every painter knows this silence, the blank canvas, the hesitation before the first stroke, the doubt that whispers, what if this is not good enough? In America, where everything moves fast, where productivity is worshipped and results are demanded, painting can feel like rebellion, because painting refuses urgency. It refuses speed. It refuses certainty. A painter sits in front of a blank canvas, and for a long time, nothing happens. But this nothing is not empty. It is full of pressure, memory, expectation, fear, desire. And yet, this is where all great art begins, because flow does not come to those who are already moving fast. It comes to those who stay long enough in the silence to hear something deeper than thought. 2. What flow really is. Flow is not inspiration. Inspiration is a spark. Flow is a river. In psychology, flow is described as a state where action and awareness merge. Time distorts. The sense of self fades. You are no longer thinking about painting. You are painting. But let me offer a more human definition. Flow is the moment when you stop trying to control the painting and start listening to it instead. Because every canvas has a voice. Every color has resistance. Every brushstroke either aligns with something or fights against it. And when you are in flow, you stop forcing. You respond. 3. The painter who forgot time. Let me tell you a story. There was a painter in New York, an ordinary man by all appearances. He worked a job he did not love, came home tired every evening, and painted in a small corner of his apartment. For years, he painted with frustration. Every painting felt like a negotiation between what he wanted and what his hands could actually do. One evening, exhausted after a long day, he began to paint without expectation. No goal, no ambition, just movement. Minutes passed, then hours. At some point, he forgot the clock. He forgot the room. He forgot himself. When he finally stepped back, the painting was already complete. Not perfect, not famous, not valuable in any commercial sense, but alive. And he said something later that stayed with me. Open quote. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was making art. I felt like I was letting it happen through me. Close quote. That is flow. IV. Why flow matters more than talent in America. We often worship talent. We admire those who are naturally gifted. We assume greatness belongs to a select few. But painting does not agree with this myth, because flow is not reserved for the talented. Flow belongs to the present. A beginner who is fully present will create something more alive than a master who is distracted. This is uncomfortable to hear, because it removes the comfort of hierarchy. It tells us that greatness is not locked behind ability, but behind attention. And attention is something anyone can learn to give. V, the enemy of flow. Control. If flow has an enemy, it is control. Control says, make it perfect. Fix this line. Don't make mistakes. Think before you act. But painting does not live in thinking. Painting lives in movement. And control interrupts movement. There is a moment in every painting where the painter must choose. Do I continue trying to make it correct, or do I let it become what it wants to become? This is the quiet battle, and most people never notice it. But every painting you admire, every piece that feels alive rather than forced, was born in the moment control was released. Flow is not chaos. But let us be clear, flow is not randomness. It is not spilling paint and calling it art. Flow has structure, but it is a structure discovered in real time. Think of jazz musicians in a late-night club. They are not playing randomly. They are listening to each other so deeply that structure emerges naturally from response. Painting in flow is the same. The brush does not obey strict plans. It follows rhythm. It follows tension. It follows balance that is felt, not calculated. Second, the body knows before the mind. One of the most overlooked truths about painting is this. Your body understands before your mind does. The hand moves, the eye adjusts, the wrist corrects, and only afterward does the mind try to explain what happened. Flow begins when you trust that sequence. Not thinking first, but doing first, and then understanding later. This is why children often paint with more freedom than adults. They have not yet learned to interrupt themselves. 8. The moment you enter flow, there is a threshold. At first, painting feels separate from you. You are outside it, observing it. Then something shifts. You stop judging every stroke. You stop stepping back every 10 seconds. You stop asking, is this good? And suddenly, the distance collapses. The painting is no longer in front of you. You are inside it. Time becomes strange. Minutes feel like seconds, or seconds feel like hours. And when you finally stop, it feels like waking up. IX, the American painter's paradox. In America, we are taught to measure success quickly. We ask, how fast can you improve? How many paintings can you sell? How many followers can you gain? But flow does not respond to these questions. Flow is slow to arrive and impossible to force, and this creates a paradox. The more you chase recognition, the further flow moves away. The more you let go of recognition, the closer flow becomes. This is not philosophy. It is practice. Every serious painter eventually learns this through frustration. X. Vincent and the depth of absorption. Think of Vincent van Gogh. When he painted, he was not thinking about audience approval or market value. He was immersed in sensation, color as emotion, movement as energy. His brushwork was not careful. It was alive. You can see in his paintings that something is happening beyond control. The strokes carry urgency, but also surrender. Whether he was in Arles or Saint Remy, what mattered was not the outcome, but the intensity of presence. That intensity is flow made visible. Why flow feels like freedom? Flow feels like freedom because it removes self-consciousness. Most of the time, we are watching ourselves. Do I look competent? Am I doing this right? What will others think? But in flow, that internal observer disappears. There is only action, only presence, only painting. And that absence of self-judgment is why flow feels so rare and so addictive once experienced. 10th, the discipline behind flow. Here is something important that often gets misunderstood. Flow is not random inspiration that visits occasionally. Flow is prepared. You do not command it, but you create conditions for it. You arrive at the canvas consistently. You tolerate boredom. You continue even when nothing feels special, because flow does not appear in chaos. It appears in continuity. 3rd, the first brush stroke. The first brush stroke is always the most important. Not because it must be perfect, but because it breaks hesitation. Hesitation is the wall between you and flow. Once the brush touches the canvas, something changes in the nervous system. The mind shifts from planning to responding. And from that moment onward, everything becomes easier. Not because the painting is easier, but because resistance has been broken. When flow breaks, flow does not last forever. A phone rings, a doubt appears, fatigue sets in, or suddenly you start thinking again, and just like that, you step out of it. But here's the truth most painters learn over time. Flow always returns. Not to the same painting, not in the same moment, but it returns to those who are willing to begin again. SRXV, the emotional core of painting. At its deepest level, painting is not about technique. It is about translation. You are translating something invisible, emotion, memory, tension, silence, joy you cannot explain. Flow is the state where translation becomes effortless, where what you feel moves directly into form, without interruption, without distortion. 6. The courage to let go. Perhaps the hardest part of painting is not learning how to control the brush. It is learning how to release it, to allow accidents, to accept imperfection, to trust that something meaningful can emerge without strict control. This requires courage, because letting go feels like losing authority, but in truth, it is the beginning of deeper mastery. Satan, flow beyond painting. Flow is not limited to art. You can find it in writing, in music, in sports, in coding, even in conversation. But painting teaches it in one of its purest forms because painting gives you no instructions, only presence, only feedback, only silence waiting to be filled. And in that silence, you discover something surprising. You are capable of more than planning allows. 8T, the quiet transformation. Over time, painters change, not dramatically, but quietly. They become more patient, more attentive, less afraid of mistakes, because they have seen what happens when control loosens. They have seen that something intelligent exists beneath effort, and they begin to trust it. 9, the final truth about flow. If there is one truth to carry from all of this, it is simple. Flow is not something you chase. It is something you allow. It is already present beneath the noise of doubt, expectation, and fear. You do not create it, you uncover it, like light hidden beneath dust. X closing. So when you stand in front of a canvas, whether in a studio in Los Angeles, a classroom in Boston, or a small apartment anywhere in this country, remember this. The painting is not waiting for perfection. It is waiting for presence. It is waiting for your willingness to begin without knowing how it will end. And if you stay long enough, if you stop interrupting yourself, if you let the brush move without fear, you may discover something extraordinary. Not a masterpiece, but something more important. A moment where you are no longer separate from what you are creating. A moment where time disappears. A moment where you are not controlling the painting, but becoming it. That is flow in painting. And once you have felt it, even once, you will spend your life returning to it. Thank you.